My husband is a very, very busy man. When he's gone, I miss him, but like as soon as he tells me that he's on the flight home or driving back, it's like I can't breathe anymore, and then he gets home and I'm picking fights.
If I go prodding, will you promise you'll be as honest as possible?
My husband is a very, very busy man. He travels frequently, and so he'll be gone for days or even weeks at a time. When he is gone, it's just me and my son at the house, and we have kind of just like a peaceful rhythm. We have things planned, but nothing too busy, just kind of going with the flow. And then when he comes home, the energy is very different. He's a very intense, passionate kind of man. And so he brings that energy into the household. And it's always kind of chaotic. And I'm having a hard time regulating kind of between the two environments. When he's gone, I miss him. But then when he comes home, I am kind of overstimulated. Like as soon as he tells me that he's on the flight home or driving back, it's like I can't breathe anymore. And then he gets home and I'm picking fights. And I'm just having a hard time regulating between when he's gone and it's just me and my son. And then when he's home, it has like this whole kind of different dynamic with the house.
You're awesome. Got to tell you, thank you for the call.
Thank you for picking up our call.
If I go prodding, will you promise you'll be as honest as possible?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever sat down and told him that you hate his job and you miss him?
So we've talked about.
Hold on. Have you ever told him that?
Yes.
What did he say?
He says he's burnt out too.
Okay.
But I think I kind of forgot a big piece. So he's always kind of been like this very on-the-go motivated person. But a year and a half ago, we went through some pretty extreme trauma, and I think he's still kind of living with that every day. And I think his coping mechanism has been to fill his schedule as busy as possible so that he doesn't have to sit and think about it.
Busyness is a great American male drug.
Yes. And it does feel like a drug in the house.
Yeah. What was the trauma? What happened?
Be very empathetic.
What was
his mom had a heart attack, and she was on life support for 2 weeks, and so he slept with her in the hospital, had to kind of witness all of that, and then after the 2 weeks had to make the decision to take her off life support.
Mm. Where's his dad?
He is in the picture in the very slightest sense.
Okay.
We wish he wasn't, but I wish he wasn't.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. And so when this all did happen, I was 6 months pregnant and he is the oldest brother. Mm-hmm. And so I saw him take on the energy of like, I'm the man of the house.
Sure.
You guys feel, I won't feel. And kind of that has not stopped since that time.
Okay. And my guess is he needs somebody who really loves him to sit down and say, you're safe now.
Yeah.
And I miss you now.
Yeah.
And the most empathetic thing is rarely silence.
Yeah.
And if it's safe, and no one's going to tell you this in a how to be married blog. If there's abuse, then that's a totally different conversation. But if you're safe, then what many men need in this situation is their wife to wade through that electricity and hug them anyway.
Yeah.
Because my guess is he's running and gunning and he's high as a kite on busy and he doesn't know how to stop. It's just cocaine. Yeah. He can't get off. And every time he starts to dip, and the only way to keep going is to take more.
Yeah, there has been moments where he's had to dip. Either like my son and I haven't been home or we've been doing something, and mentally it's very, very hard on him.
Right. But just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. He's going to have to get off this train one way or the other, and I'm afraid it's going to end poorly. He's going to say or do something out of just sheer fatigue and exhaustion and anger, unprocessed anger. Because, by the way, that should not have been his call to make. That should have been his dad. His dad sucks.
Yeah.
And it should have been all the brothers rallying around, and he's probably been taking on that role since he was a really little kid. And he probably had some conversations you wanted to have with mom, and he can't have them.
Yeah.
And the worst possible thing he can do is go through 18 months of not talking to anybody, saying anything. And that's a tools issue. He doesn't have the tools in his toolkit. He didn't have a picture of what an adult male looks like when they're struggling. But he does have a wife who loves him to the moon and back.
Yes. He does have that.
Yeah. And so I think the easy thing, and by the way, I'm a humongous, loud, obnoxious guy. So I've seen my wife like almost flinch when she wades in.
Yeah.
When I'm not doing well. And not flinch from she's going to get hit, but she can feel the nuclear reactor in my chest. She can feel it.
Yeah. And we've been together for almost 13 years now, so I've always been used to kind of that intensity, but now it never comes down, which is kind of where we're struggling.
That's right. And it's just like the last call, the couple I just talked to. And by the way, if he ever wants to call in, I'd love to talk to him.
Okay.
But it's you guys asking the most terrifying question I think anybody can ask. And that is, okay, it's been 18 months since the worst of the worst. And now we're starting to wear the bomb blast inside our own house. Here's the most terrifying question you and him can ask together. What are we going to do now? Because we can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
I can't have you disappearing for weeks at a time and coming in like a tornado. I can't be in my own house and have a panic attack when the most important person in my life says he's coming home.
Yep.
And so we have to decide to do something different together so that when you text me from the plane, everything in my day gets better.
Okay.
But it's gonna be someone who loves him. It's an intervention, if you will. If you ever watched that show, it's an intervention.
Yeah.
But it has to start with I words. I miss you. And I can't do this anymore. I'm not leaving you, but I need you to know that you not being well affects all of us in this house.
Okay.
How can I love you? And I'm going to see a counselor because I don't know how to love you through your pain, through all this old stuff. I'm fine. I'm doing okay. You're not. I've known you too long. You're not.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's not, you have to quit your job. It's not any of that kind of stuff. I'm busy. I think I've talked about it here on the show. I'm busier now than I was when me and my wife finally sat down, when she finally waded through and said, enough is enough is enough is enough. You're not okay.
Yeah.
And I know you feel like you're harnessing the electricity, but you're not. We're all getting burned.
Yeah.
So it's
that's kind of how it feels.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you end up feeling used, huh?
Yeah, I kind of just feel like I'm getting dragged behind a car sometimes.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And for a while, sex will calm it down. For a while, I'll do a nice thing like with dinner. For a while, I'll keep the house a certain way. For a while, but then you start longing for, why don't you just go on your trip so me and my son can get back to our life?
Right.
And
we've had that conversation that it feels like my son and I have one life and he has one life, and sometimes they overlap, but otherwise they're separate.
And that's what we're going to call right now. We're going to call it. We're going to turn the lights on, turn the music off, and say, I'm not living two lives anymore. We're living together. I'm your wife. And I miss my husband.
Okay.
And so we get to decide, how does this house feel when you walk in? And I want it to feel warm and full of laughter. So here's what must be true. When you come in, here's what this has got to look like for me. And by the way, when you come in, how do you want that to look like? When you're gone, how do you want us to talk, to text, to laugh, to have joy, to like, what do you want that to look like? Because this separate life thing is killing me.
Yeah.
And I think underneath it, am I right? Like, I think you just miss your husband, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's really all it is, I think.
Miss your ride or die, yeah. And does he know that part?
We've talked about that.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of feels like we've had all these, or not all of these, but a lot of these conversations, and right now he's kind of just in that like addiction, so to say. Yeah. Like it's almost like he can't grab onto something to get off.
Yeah. I think that's a great sentence to tell him. I see you, and I know you can't get off. But here's the truth. When you land next time, I'm going to ask you to go spend the night in a hotel because I don't want you coming straight from the airport because I can't handle it in the house. It's too hot.
Okay.
Or I'll go with you. Like, nobody would make fun of you if you had a leak in the roof and you had to go ask somebody how to repair the shingles. You don't have the tools right now to get off the busyness roller coaster and to be present with your family and actually decide, do we want to live here? Do we want to move? Do we want to go do something else? And so we're going to get the help that we need.
Okay.
For me, will you go do that?
We've talked about like him going to therapy before, and it's a little too nervous to do it alone.
Yeah.
Is that something that we could start together?
1,000 million billion %, yes. That'd be the greatest gift you can give him. And I would probably phrase it like this. I've made an appointment with a trusted counselor that a couple of friends of ours like pointed out. I'm going next Tuesday. A way you could really show me that you love me is if you came with me.
Okay.
And when you get to the therapist, it's not going to be about he's doing this and he's doing this. It is, I'm out of ways to show my husband that I love him and that he's safe at home. I want to learn some new skills. And when he hears it with a neutral third party, not in his environment at his house where it's all like where he's got an energy that he's walking into his own house with. When you're sitting in a therapist's office and your wife says, I'm trying so hard to love him and I'm out of tools. I don't know how. Can you help me, therapist? Often that has it's like peeling a cataract off a situation. Because no husband that I know wants their wife to feel like they're out of options on how to love them. And that would be a great invitation for him. But yes, I'd make the appointment. I would tell him you're going. And if he doesn't show up, I would go anyway. But invite him and tell him those words. The number one way you could show me you love me right now is to go with me. Because I love you so, so, so much and I miss you and I don't have a connection point back. Thank you for the call, Diana. He's lucky to have you in his life. And he's lucky to love you through his grief, that you're loving him through his grief. You're loving him through his addiction to busyness. You're loving him through he's terrified on what to do next. He doesn't have a dad in his life that he can call and say, hey, old man, can you help me with this next move? He's lucky to have you. Just remember, empathy rarely equals silence. Empathy is not passive. Empathy is active. Thanks for loving him well, Diana.